If you've ever shopped for fancy jewelry, you may have noticed the dramatic difference in pricing between white pearls and the rare and mysterious black pearl. In fact, ancient Chinese legends tell that black pearls are created by dragons, formed within their minds, and carried protectively in their jaws when the dragon reaches adulthood. Which is cool and all, but what the heck does it have to do with your business? Black pearls are thought to be one of the rarest of all naturally occurring gemstones, coveted by the world's most wealthy. But I'll let you in on a little secret. Black pearls actually aren't that special, and their value is nothing more than a man-made perception designed specifically to heighten demand. You see where I'm going with this? During our very first ever episode of Etsy V History, we'll be uncovering the secret pricing strategy of the black pearl, and how a simple watch dealer with an inferior stock of pearls came to be known as the Pearl King. This is a lesson of value and positioning that every Etsy seller should keep top of mind when aligning their product pricing. Our story begins with Salvador Asal, the son of an Italian jeweler who was practically raised in a treasure chest. His father, James Asal, was a big deal in the diamond world, working with only the rarest and most precious stones. Needless to say that, growing up, Asal was surrounded by gems and crystals. This time with his father allowed him to learn firsthand about rare and quality stones, as well as how to spot profitable opportunities. As the shadow of World War II loomed heavily over Italy, Asal's family made the choice to flee in 1939, and later settled in New York. During this time, Asal documented this lesson from his father: to focus on rarity and only the very highest quality, and to always be ahead of the curve. Fluent in 6 languages, Asal eventually served as a translator in the US Army during World War II. Meanwhile, his father James was busy supplying American troops with Swiss watches, acquired through the German-Swiss watch export blockade. Now, obviously, this was a lucrative business at the time, but unfortunately, as the war came to a close, so did the business of supplying watches to the military, leaving the Asal family with a massive stock of unsold watches. When Salvador returned to New York, he made offloading these watches his primary objective. This led him to Japan, where there was high demand for the watches, but unfortunately the Japanese really didn't have disposable cash at the time. Instead, they relied heavily on bartering and trade. Though the Japanese lacked cash, they did have an abundance of a very different kind of resource: Japanese cultured Akoya pearls. And thus, the Asal family took their very first accidental steps into the pearl trade industry, a journey that left Salvador eager to expand upon the market. After all, if they were now to deal in pearls, why not offer the biggest and rarest pearls? Just like his father had taught him, Salvador spotted a profitable opportunity and went all in. At the time, a single strand of Japanese Akoya pearls could only sell for around $3,000 wholesale. However, as demand in America grew for bigger and rarer pearls, Salvador directed his focus to the pearl farms of Thursday Island. These farms produced massive white pearls, some as large as 15 millimeters in diameter. Not only were the pearls bigger, but they were also extremely valuable, selling at $50,000 per strand. It's been said that Salvador Asal had a mind like a computer. Through his passion and experience, he was able to scan the pearl industry for gaps and jump when the timing was just right. Similar to how we use E-Rank to find gaps in competition when demand for a specific product is high. Unfortunately, over time, supply of these giant pearls began to run dry as political instabilities threatened production. But this didn't stop Salvador Asal. Instead, he pivoted again, taking interest in a different type of pearl: the Tahitian black pearl. These pearls were far from the beautiful white pearls previously offered by the Asals. They were often oddly shaped and ranged from black to a dark oil slick color. Not exactly what one would expect to see adorning the necks of wealthy women. In one of the most historical cases of perceived value, Salvador championed his newly acquired Tahitian pearls. he began marketing them towards tourists throughout French Polynesia, as well as through print ads and media. Through his marketing efforts and positioning of these pearls, the perceived value of these pieces skyrocketed. And at the peak of that rising interest, Salvador Asal made the most lucrative deal of his life, a deal that would forever crown him as the Pearl King. At the peak of this newly formed interest for black pearls, Salvador Asal reached out to the infamous jeweler Harry Winston, who began showcasing Salvador Asal's finest Tahitian pearl strands in the window of his salon on Fifth Avenue in New York. These pearls were placed directly next to the finest jewels that Harry Winston had to offer, thus creating what we now call a price anchor. In marketing psychology, price anchoring refers to our internal reference point that we use to determine an item's value relative to its price. And these are internal mechanisms that we all use every time we analyze the cost of an item. For example, we all know approximately how much a gallon of milk costs in our area. If a new brand of milk dramatically exceeds this anchor, we tend to assume that either there's something special about the milk, or we assume that the distributor of the milk is overcharging. We also know approximately how much a quality diamond engagement ring costs. If the price of an engagement ring drops dramatically lower than our anchor, we tend to perceive that low-cost ring as being inferior and less valuable. When Harry Winston placed these previously unknown pearls next to his finest jewels, the price of those expensive pieces served as the reference point. They set the anchor for Asal's black pearls, increasing their perceived value and justifying a new high price tag. And once the black pearls were anchored to the finest jewelry in the world, they became just as valuable as diamonds and rubies. Salvador Asal began hypermarketing at the peak of demand, introducing full-page magazine adverts alongside the slogan, "A new gem is born." And thus, demand for a previously unknown and arguably undesirable gemstone was formed. So, as business owners, what can we learn from the Pearl King? First of all, it's important to note that new anchors can be created, but it takes a lot of hard work. Humans rely on past experiences when determining what the value of a product should be and what they're willing to pay for that item. If Salvador Asal had sent his black pearls off to a smaller jeweler, he likely would never have become the Pearl King. It was the creation of this anchor that promoted demand for a previously unheard of gemstone, and that caused women everywhere to dream of owning black pearls. In your own business, it's important to identify existing anchors in your industry. What do your competitors charge? What do larger brands and companies charge? And how can you increase the perceived value of your products without altering the items themselves? Value comes in all forms, from your product photos to your packaging. Brands prove all the time that price comes not just from the quality of an item, but from the underlying experience of purchasing and even unpackaging that item. Sellers tell me all the time that their customers don't care about things like packaging and branding, which may be what they say out loud, but it directly contradicts human behavior and buying habits. Branding isn't just a logo or a color palette. Your brand is a universe that surrounds your business. It's the way customers perceive you and the feelings they attach to your business. Attributes like your logo, branding colors, packaging, photos, advertising, and even your pricing all contribute to this perception. And creating a positive perception of your brand is the very first step in influencing casual shoppers to become active buyers. In the sea of competitors who likely offer products similar to your own, it's important to remember the key lessons that drove Salvador Asal to success. Actively seek opportunities. Leap on gaps in the market and rising trends. Make friends in adjacent industries who can help you as you help them in return. And never forget the power of creating your own brand perceptions. You may think your customers don't care about your branding and presentation so long as your products are good, but their subconscious does. And by utilizing existing anchors in your industry, you gain the unique ability to directly influence the emotions of those who come in contact with your brand. Over the next few months, I'll be leaning more heavily into the topic of consumer psychology and neuromarketing. So if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to let me know down in the comments. Right now, these videos and topics are a bit experimental, so feedback from my community is crucial. And if you're an Etsy seller who enjoys the psychology side of business, I just wanted to give a quick heads up that my self-paced coaching program will be opening for limited registration on June 14th through the 24th. The Handmade Alpha Academy is the only Etsy course in the world that teaches sellers a foundation of neuromarketing, providing you with skills that will forever apply to any business you create. We still have well over a month until doors open, but if you're interested in learning more about the program, I'll have details in the link up here or visit joinhaa.com. I don't feel like lo-fi fits this video outro. Let's cue the epic sea shanty.